You know, growing up, I am a African American, and I'm also half native West African, if you could say that. My dad's from Sierra Leone. I even descend from tribal royalty. And anytime there was a group of black people in a household and white people were brought up, they were never brought up in the most positive light. Like, even if we were to try to say something like positive about them, it was like something like they were slighted in some kind of way, or they were made fun of in some kind of way. Like, they were just never like praised. Oh, like, you know, the white man's great, the white man this, the white man's that. Like, and even like when they were acknowledged or praised in some kind of way, like they'll say something like, oh, he did this is like, he white though, like as if like that fact about that person mattered. I was born in the city of Philadelphia. I grew up in a neighborhood where like white people were some kind of like mystery almost, like in the hood. And like the biggest impression you had upon white people was like the stuff you saw on Disney Channel or TV. Like, I'm watching Boy Meets World as a kid. They're supposed to take place in Philadelphia. Boy Meets World was also filmed in California, I believe. So I'm watching Boy Meets World on television. I'm in Philadelphia, and like they have a completely different like reality than I do. Completely, not just I know it's a TV show, but like how their Philadelphia looked, which wasn't Philadelphia, versus how my Philadelphia looked was completely different. Like, they didn't have gunshots ringing in the middle of the night. And when I finally moved to the suburbs and I gained a plethora of white friends before the age of social media, where people were more likely to say unsavory things behind closed doors, I realized they were very similar to me. Like, especially when you became close to certain white friends and they talked about other ethnic groups, it was very similar of how us as black people talked about white people when they weren't around. And eventually gets to that level where you hear exactly how white people talk about black people when they're not around. And it's not so much that they were saying things out of like hatred and racism, it was just like, you know, they were just not a part of that tribe, essentially. And I remember when I was going to Sierra Leone. I'm from Sierra Leone, went to Sierra Leone twice this year for the first time in my life. I'm going there expected to be treated as a Sierra Leone person. I'm treated with a lot of respect, but also treated kind of as an outsider at the same time, because I'm from America. I can't speak full Creole and have a lot of like American tendencies, which are a little bit strange to the Sierra Leone people. I don't fully fit in America because I'm eccentric, and the same thing over there. Like, regardless of the fact that I'm African, regardless of the fact that I'm black, regardless of the fact that I'm Muslim, I'm still kind of looked at as a different entity. Probably even a little bit more so than I am like that over here in America. As a matter of fact, I could distinctly remember, like, pretty much anywhere I go, you know, people would kind of stare at me or look at me. Even sometimes even make parade me around. It also kind of bothered me when I went to the masjids, the mosque over there. People would look at me funny, like, "What are you doing here?" kind of, and ask me weird questions like, "Do you follow the sunnah of the prophet? Do you do this? Do you do that?" And I'm like, yeah, like, it's Ramadan, I'm Muslim, what do you think I do? I found that strange, you know, like, whereas in America, I've never been approached like that in my entire life, regardless of what kind of mosque I went to, whether it was a Turkish mosque, whether it was a Pakistani-dominated mosque, whatever, anywhere I went as a Muslim in a Islamic setting, I was treated as if I was a part of that tribe. To give an example, I was on the board of directors at my local mosque, which is one of the biggest Islamic communities in the United States, actually. And I was on the board of directors there at 18 years old. I didn't even want to be. They just threw me on the board. Like, I was never treated. This before it became like it was a more black populated mosque. I was one of the first black families in a part of that community, actually, before it got so big. And, you know, I was never treated in any kind of Islamic community as like an outcast or an outsider. I was always very welcome, and I felt more ostracized in my father's home country, where he descends from tribal royalty, than I did here in America. And even in Sierra Leone, which is where most of the slaves come from, they even have high levels of tribalism still in 2022. Like, for example, there's several tribes in Sierra Leone, and the people will judge each other in a very similar way that, to the same level that white people, black people, Hispanics, Chinese will kind of judge each other, but they're all black. And an American would not be able to tell any of these tribes apart, or their Creole apart, or anything like that. But they would say to this day, like, oh, you do this because you're a Timni man. You do this something wrong because you're a Mende man. You do this something wrong because you're a Fula man, or you're Limba man, or you're a Creole man, or whatever the case may be. Like, that stuff is still very prevalent today in Sierra Leone. Hilarious to me. And I saw Stephen A. Smith get criticized for defending the one NBA team owner for, you know, attending a protest back 65 years ago. Yeah, I honestly believe it's pretty stupid. Like, I'm ashamed that Stephen A. Smith didn't defend Kanye West and Kyrie Irving to the same capacity. And it's not about defending Stephen A. Smith. I'm just thinking that the the Outlast story with that guy did 65 years ago. Even though we've all done things unsavory and said things unsavory to other races, the crime should fit the punishment. Like, this guy started to protest. It's not that this guy did something violent. He was a 15-year-old kid and got to get judged. I mean, there's a possibility he even just showed up because where else were you supposed to go? People got out the house, not just behind the phone back in the 1950s and 60s. It's not to defend his actions. Like, I don't like him. I'm not trying to applaud him. I'm just saying it's not that big of a deal. Even the things that Kyrie and Kyrie got canceled for really not that big of a deal. I've said a lot of unsavory things and will probably continue to say a lot of unsavory things about white people. You're welcome. But I've had more white employees than I've had black employees. Even as of today, like, white people older than me will call me asking for employment, or doing some kind of business venture, whatever the case may be. And it's not that big of a deal. I have plenty of white friends. I've had white girlfriends and whatever the case may be. Not really by choice, but even despite all the things that I've said, and even sometimes did, like, against people of other races, it wasn't really out of hatred from the heart. It maybe came from, at worst, like some kind of negative mob mentality. And there are a lot of severe racial issues that exist in the world that need to be addressed and do need to be fixed. But a lot of times we worry about the small things that don't really have an effect on anything. Like, I'm really making a video about the one NBA team owner who attended a protest just to get views on my YouTube channel. Like, that's the worst thing that racist act has caused. Think about it. Like, I'm sure the 6 black kids that attended that school don't even care that NBA team owner was probably there. That had bigger problems to worry about. I mean, like the actual threat of violence during that place and time. And look, man, for example, slavery, which was meant to, bring the black populace into the matrix and not to forget about the history, has caused us to latch on to such minuscule issues instead of addressing the problems that we can fix ourselves. I do care about people regardless of your skin or ethnic background, but I do try to look out for my black people, especially my black Muslim people, as much as I can. That way they don't continue to go down, negative paths and destructive paths. One of my great-great-great-great-grandfather, by glory, aka King Brimezus, also had 103 white slaves. It is one of my personal goals in my life to beat his record, but that's another story. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this talk, don't forget to like that button. Don't forget to comment below, guys. Tell what you guys think about the current age of racism. Don't forget to cop some King Kamara Brimezus t-shirts off my website. The link will be in the description box below. And most importantly, guys, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so I can continue to give you guys more content on a regular basis. Your boy Brimezus. I will see you guys next time.